Hello and welcome to the second video in the rocket launcher series. In this one we're going to make an alternate fire right click that changes this disc into more of a grenade-like behavior where it just kind of bounces around until it explodes. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is to make a new copy of this projectile prefab because we'll want to use the new copy. Well, we're going to script it to have a slightly different behavior anyway. So we'll want to make a new copy of it. So with it selected, hit Control D, and that will duplicate it. Make sure you have disk 1 selected, and then we're going to rename this to projectile disk grenade. And then on the prefab for the weapon, I'm going to attach that disk to the grenade prefab. And so that when I start making changes to it, we won't have to go back to the weapon anymore to make those fixes. Okay, so that seems good. Now we want to write the script for this. So the script we'll want to make a new script for it because it is a totally separate logic, really. So we'll duplicate the existing rocket, but make some tweaks to it. Well, I'm just thinking if we could reuse this. No, I'll just make a new one. All right, so the new one's called Rocket 1, and I'm just going to rename this to Player Grenade. So then we need, every time Visual Studio just wants to reopen. So we double click it. And now we need to verify that we're editing grenade before we start changing this name here. And most of the same things can stay true. It's the same code for the launch. It's the same code here. The only thing that we're going to really change is instead of on collision enter impacting, we're going to need to set up a timer so that it will eventually explode kind of on its own. So we will create another one here called public float fuse timer. And this is how long until it explodes. Now, I'm just going to set it to 3 seconds. We could get fancy and have it so that if you hold down right click, it adjusts the duration of how long the grenade takes till it explodes. Because that's actually a really cool mechanic, and I've really enjoyed that in different FPSs. But we're just stick to the basics. So we now need a update method that will just take fuse timer and subtract time.delta time from it, so that as it approaches 0, eventually it will reach 0. And so when fuse timer is less than or equal to 0, we'll just call impact. And then that handles all of our detonation for us. So this will instead of hitting a thing, we'll wait till the timer runs out. Now, in the future, once we start putting enemies, we could totally make it so that if it hits an enemy, it automatically explodes. Because a lot of games will do that. That a grenade will bounce off of the level geometry, but the moment it hits contact with an entity, it detonates. And so we can go through and update that when we get to enemies. So we'll hit save on that. And over back in the weapon launcher, we will want to make these changes. So actually, let's make a method here for set fuse. And then we'll just say fuse timer equals timer. That way, when we initialize this, we can also set how long it's going to exist for. All right, so back in the launcher, we're going to essentially duplicate all of this is-ready code. I'm going to copy that and go into Fire 2 and start changing this. So this is a meaningless change, but I'm just going to, instead of calling it rocket, I'm calling it grenade. And it's going to instantiate the grenade prefab. Same information here. Same information here, except for it doesn't have the rocket script anymore. It has the grenade script. And then I want to run the set fuse command here. So that I can set that manually. Now, I suppose I should check to see, is there a variable here that I had for a grenade fuse time? And there isn't, so maybe I should add one. So we'll do public float grenade fuse, and that will equal 3. And this will just say the time in seconds before the grenade explodes. And so that was, instead of setting it here, it would be grenade fuse. That way, all of the important variables can be changed by the designer inside the Unity editor, that once we want to just tweak the balance, we don't have to go back into the code. Instead of playing the rocket sound, we want to play the grenade sound, which they're the same thing, but still. And then lastly, I do want to rotate the grenade. So that will be grenade.transform capital R rotate new vector 3 0 negative grenade angle 0 0. So it's an x-axis rotation that will arc the grenade up a tiny bit so that it kind of shoots up into the air out of the launcher. And we can hit save on that. We can go back to Unity and make sure that we've changed the script on the projectile so that this is no longer using the rocket script. So if you click the triple dots and just go to remove component, we can then make sure that it has the that's rocket, that's grenade. So grenade is this third one here. Kind of surprised the mouse over doesn't work. There we go. And so we drag and drop that. We will have to rebind the explosion since this is a new script, which really isn't a whole lot of work. That was just a small explosion, and we attach that. So then we can hit play. And now it will shoot a disc. It will shoot a disc out, and that disc will explode after 3 seconds, but otherwise it'll have all the same properties of the rocket. Oh. Now, I forgot to enable gravity. That's kind of one big difference here. So hit stop. We want to go to that projectile prefab. And on its rigid body, we want to re-enable use gravity. Now, also in my script for launching this, I was using the rocket speed here when I really should have been using grenade force. That's another tweak that I need to make. Because it was coming out with too much force. And so if you want more arc to it, you could probably just lower the force or increase the angle. So you can essentially shoot over a wall with it. Now we have that same problem that we did before where you can kind of like sometimes shoot it through a wall. You know, that's mostly an issue of the spawn point on this thing, the gun muzzle, being so far forward. I mean, we could drop it back. The problem with that is it would create some interesting looking visuals, so we'll just let that live for now. It shouldn't be too big of an issue. But there we go. Now we've got 2 different modes. We have a regular rocket mode and a delayed explosion grenade mode. And now we have a pretty diverse set of weapons. We have a projectile blaster, we have a hit scan shotgun, and we have an area effects rocket and grenade. And so that will give us a lot of tools to attack enemies with. And that will be chapter 3, which is coming soon. The very last thing in this chapter is to get ammo working, to get some HUD, some heads-up display, and ammo for each weapon. And then that will conclude our ventures in player weapons. And then we'll move on to enemies in chapter 3. So thank you for watching, and I hope you had a lot of fun making this weapon.